Good.
I will call this meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. First up, the approval of the minutes of the last meeting on December 9th. You guys have a chance to look at that?
Move to approve the minutes from December 9th meeting.
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to approve the regular board meeting minutes of December 9th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that is approved. Next, the approval of general fund vouchers 77383 through 77513 and wire transfers 19200-266 through 19200-319.
Move to approve.
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to approve the vouchers and wire transfers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Next, public comments on agenda items. Do you have anything?
I didn't sign up, but I'll just,
Go ahead.
Empty Bowls is this Thursday. It is a soup dinner with breadsticks and dessert and a handcrafted bowl. With the $10 suggested donation, the bowls have been made since the beginning of the school year from art club members, community members, a couple church groups have come in, a couple parents have come in to make bowls, and they're absolutely beautiful. And all the proceeds, they don't come to the art department, but they go directly to our backpack program. So all of the soups are being provided by the local churches and Brick Fire Pizza this Thursday. So it starts at 4:30, and we'll serve really until soup is gone.
How many bowls do you got?
Starts at 5. Starts at 5. Okay. We keep on changing the time. So
For sure 5.
how many bowls we have? Probably about 200 bowls
Nice.
this year. So we met my goal. Made probably about 80 or so myself, but it was fun.
Really good at making both.
But you make the best ones.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next up, Spotlight on Education, Ag Ed Conference.
All right.
So I do have a little bit of a presentation if you would like to find a seat that allows you to see this a little bit better. Oh, you're so kind.
She did that honors, I suppose that's fine.
Yeah, it's good.
It's crooked.
We ended up pulling it down and then back up because it was just better this way. It seemed to be more.
Yeah, are you able to explain the scholarship
Yes.
piece of it too?
Yes.
Great, thanks.
All right, as that is maybe slow working. Okay. So I was awarded a scholarship. So as I was being hired here as a student teacher and kind of going through the process, prior to all of that happening, I actually was on campus at River Falls and was offered the ability to apply for a scholarship to go to, if it'll pop up here maybe.
Is that hot button at the top over there?
It looks like you have
Extend the
the
screen.
Apple P.
Yeah, Apple P.
You should.
I'm gonna let you, because you have met
You gotta do the,
presentations. Beautiful. Okay. So it's actually called the Future Agri-Science Teacher Symposium, or the FAST Symposium, and it is a special project of the National Association of Agricultural Educators, which is something that I'm actually a member of. I was a student member, and now as a teacher I do have a full membership with them as well. But it's a really awesome opportunity for student teachers, pre-service teachers, and then first-year agriculture teachers to meet in a cohort. So they select students to go to this symposium. They're part of a cohort, and then they kind of get to learn together, and they go through and share ideas, and they hear from people from all over the country that are teaching agriculture in classrooms, and some different opportunities that are out there for professional development. So the backdrop is actually Disneyland because it was in Anaheim. So I had the pleasure of, in the middle of the snowstorm that was happening the weekend after Thanksgiving, I jumped on an airplane and went to California, which was very nice for me. I was very happy. Sorry you guys had like 10 inches of snow. This was our kickoff. We were hosted by so Anaheim obviously being a very inner city with a lot of convention sessions happening with Disneyland parks. Not a whole lot of ag happening directly in Anaheim, but actually just 15 minutes outside of Anaheim in Buena Park is a very urban agriculture program, which was very neat to see. They actually hosted us in their new space, so this was on our way, palm trees everywhere. I was, as the ag teacher, and me very fascinated by all of the different fauna that I got to see, the flora and fauna. There was different plants and animals everywhere. That was really cool. So that's what that was. But they actually hosted us at their site. They had 3 teachers in 3 different classroom spaces. This was just one. They had some really neat posters up about the standards that they're offering and what are the students actually needing as a part of their program. And then the top right corner is Dr. Jay Jackman, who's actually in charge of the National Ag Teachers Association. He met us at our dinner that evening that they hosted we were sitting outside December 2nd, which was just crazy to me. We had this beautiful dinner that they had provided for us. But he spoke there. Their lab spaces are very unique there. So they actually house different projects for students. So they had sheep and goats in one barn. They had a couple of steers in another barn, and then some pigs, which you'll see on the next page. But the coolest thing for me was they actually had a grove for orange trees and lemon and lime trees and pomegranate trees. So we were walking through, and I apologize, it was dark when we got there, so it was kind of hard to take some of these pictures, but just kind of mind-boggling. Like, people literally walk out their front door and pick a lime or a lemon or an orange for breakfast, and I just thought that was really, really neat. But they get to actually house all of these projects for their students. So they were in the process of basically their test system for their students. So the lab area, or the department, actually purchases a few animals for the fall semester. Students sign up to be a part of this internship, and if they show up on time, take care of the animals, and do all of the necessary requirements for the project with the department's animals, they actually will give them a scholarship for the spring. They purchase their own animals for their showing at the fair, or if they're in the livestock show where they're traveling a little bit more, they can do that as well. They actually purchase them for them. Reason being, they're in a very urban area. Many of these students, they're at about 85% free and reduced lunch. So the students don't really have the ability to do this without help. So if they earn their right, they get to have an animal and can take it to the fair, and they actually get to pay back after the fact. So if they sell their animal, they can pay back what they have taken. So just kind of unique and very different things than we typically see in Wisconsin. We don't have urban programs quite like that. So it was very neat to see what they were doing and some of the spaces they had. Yeah.
How far is it from Anaheim?
It was about 15 minutes.
Really?
Yep. So still very, very, we didn't see anything but city on our way there. We were on main highways, think like 94 Minneapolis downtown, like that's what it felt like when we were going there, and all of a sudden we kind of took a turn and there's the barn. So that was kind of unique, but actually I'm going to go back. So this was one of their new spaces. They had just recently built they actually have a classroom space that's separate from the rest of the high school. Again, kind of unique. We wouldn't really see that because how are we going to get kids to traipse everywhere in the middle of the snowstorm? They can do that there, but they actually have, this lab area was set up for floral design primarily. They have one that's a more traditional classroom and one that would be more similar to a chemistry lab. They have 3 teachers that teach in those spaces, but they can switch up as they need. So the main teacher, Jennifer, that talked to us, teaches the floral design, but she oftentimes will switch and do some more science experiments in the chemistry lab. So they just switch as they need, which is kind of neat, and they can always overflow. Where we ate dinner was a cement pad that they will move tables out and actually teach outside when they can. So that was pretty neat. So that was our kickoff the first day we were there. Then we kicked off with the actual National Ag Teachers Convention. So my symposium was a part of a much bigger convention of the National Ag Teachers Association. And later in the week, the American Career Technical Educators Conference also joined us. So I actually had the opportunity to meet people from everywhere, doing lots of different things, and see some really cool things. And I'll get into that as we go on here. Part of our professional development, and one of our favorites as new teachers, I think, and even as pre-service teachers, is hearing from teachers in the classroom, and like what to do, what do I do when, or how do we do this. So this is a teacher panel. On the far right, this is actually Rachel Savala from New Richmond. She is very well regarded across the country. People contact her all of the time for her ideas and what she's doing in New Richmond because she's got a pretty stellar program. On the left is Sharisa Naylor from Pennsylvania. At the end of the week, she actually got elected to be the National Agricultural Educators new president for the year. So that was really neat. We got kind of our own one-on-one time and got to ask her some questions. And this was Matt, and I'm spacing on his last name, but he's from Montana and actually was also running for the president spot. He just came out of being the vice president of the Western region. So just some really neat opportunity to hear from three very different areas. Obviously, I have spoken and know Rachel pretty well, but hearing from Minnesota and Montana and Pennsylvania, what do they do in the classroom and what are some of the unique things and even challenges that they have that we haven't seen yet being in the classroom. But they brought a lot of professional development. How do you balance work-life? All three of them are married, all three of them have children, and also run, as you can see, top programs in the country. So just hearing how they do it and do it all and do it well. We also that day did a Dale Carnegie training, so I included a quote from his on there. When dealing with people, remember you are dealing with creatures not of logic, but of emotion. And something I thought we bring into our classrooms as teachers. When our kids, they don't think logically, they're very much emotional beings, especially as adolescents, so remembering that was really important. But they talked to us a lot about how we communicate. So are we talking, how do we meet new people, how do we build relationships and rapport, and how do we go through that process, and what are some of the best tips to do that? So we had a certified Dale Carnegie trainer come in and teach us a little bit about conversation primarily. And then we did something called an Agri-Science Institute class. Agri-Science Institutes, or Ag-I Squared, are hosted all over the country, so they actually have one that will come to the Wisconsin Ag Teachers Association, their professional development this summer. It's a typically a two-day system that will walk you through some different agri-science lab-based components that you can bring into the classroom. Our lab for the day was figuring out how long it would take the coating of an M&M candy to dissolve. And what the process is to set up an experiment. So less about the actual outcome. It was kind of cool to see like which M&Ms would dissolve faster, fun fact, the brown ones do, and which ones took the longest, which was blue actually. But it was more about the process of writing our lab experiment, going through the process of setting up the experiment itself, and going through all of those steps to get there. This is one of many, there's a few of them that I've used. I've actually used an Oreo lab, but this is one that's recommended for kind of a kickoff to a class to teach them a little bit about the science experiments and what we might be doing with that. Oops, sorry. Next, we actually had the choice. So again, I had mentioned that this was a part of a much bigger convention that was going on. So we actually had 2 full days that we could go to the main sessions and participate in the same workshops that all of the ag teachers that were in attendance were able to go to. So while it was cool to be kind of special and do our own things and learn as new teachers, it was also really unique to be able to mix and mingle with the teachers that have been doing this for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So I actually got to sit in on one about edible labs, because kids love to eat and they remember when they can kind of be more hands-on. So this was actually an edible blood sample. This came in a little baggie, and then you had a square. There's 100 little squares on there, and you had to figure out the percentage on each of these. So I forget now what all of them were, but they would stand for different red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma, and different proteins that you would find in the blood. And you break it down and show them what is actually in a blood sample. This is actually an awesome, unique technique for the classroom for students that maybe, one, if we don't have the slides to actually do a blood sample, those can be kind of difficult. But for students that can't see or maybe can't interact with something that small, you magnify it and make it bigger. So instead of them having to look at something very microscopic, which can be very fun for some students, a lot of students will just connect with the content a little bit better at this level. The other thing I got to participate in was CASE, which is Curriculum for Agri-Science Educators. This is a much bigger, sorry, kind of blanking on what they call this, but essentially it's a teacher-educator system that happens over the summer, and it's actually anywhere from a week to 2 weeks long. You travel to a location and you go through basically a boot camp that will walk you through a different CASE curriculum for a different pathway. So for example, they do a power, structure, and technical system pathway in agriculture. So you can go, you take a week or two, and you learn some really in-depth hands-on experiments or projects that they can do. You get all of the curriculum that goes with it and all of the materials that go with it as well. So you get these kits. We got a little mini kit about carburetors, which was actually really fun. We got to make our own carburetor with water and syringe, or surgical tubing and syringes. My carburetor didn't run, but we got to figure out how they work, and that was pretty neat. I also got to sit in on a professional development workshop about diversity in the classroom and inclusion, and talking about what do our students have to give up to feel like they're included in our classrooms, and how do we set the tone as teachers. And it was something that I've never thought about, and I think a lot of us don't think about, but what are our biases and what things, if we had to give up our identity, how would we feel about it? The presenter had all of us write down, we had 5 note cards, and we had to write down how we identified, from religion to race to sexual orientation to gender. I always forget the 5th one, but you basically started ripping up ones that you were willing to give up until you had 2 cards left, and then you had to turn to a partner and they had to steal the last piece of your identity and rip it up. And we kind of walked through how did that make us feel, and what do our students feel when they walk into a classroom and they have to give up something. So it was just that unique of, I had never thought about it that way, and what do our students feel. So that was something really unique. All right, last but not least, we had one, Mr. Gillis, I think you'll like this. This kit's coming out from Purdue, but they basically make a small pulling tractor, and they have a little sled and everything that goes with it that you get with your kit, and they have to build it and wire it and make it go on a track. It was really unique. They only had one. We didn't get to play with it because their kits aren't done yet, but they're coming out this spring. So I'm very excited about that. And then one of the last workshops I went to was how to balance work and life, and I think that's something that everybody struggles with, but ag teachers, we talk about it a lot, how with FFA and our classrooms, we've kind of missed out on the family aspect of that work-life balance. And so there was a workshop all about how you set your goals and how do you structure your life to make sure that not only are you creating something amazing in your classroom for your students, loving your career, but also are you there for your family and fulfilling the things outside of your career that you want to do. The end of that night, we actually got to go down to the Anaheim Packing District, which is the old Citrus Packing House. This is essentially a very upscale mall food court. It was kind of neat. That's kind of the end of the professional part, but my personal part was I got to go to Disney. I'm kind of a Disney fanatic, so I got to go to Disneyland for the day. I saw the biggest Christmas tree I've ever seen in my whole entire life, and met Mickey Mouse. So that was it. Any questions from anyone? Sorry, it was a lot. I was trying to pack a week into 5 minutes.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you for coming in, Emily. We appreciate it.
So that was a good experience. Go ahead, Josh.
Yes.
So they go different places each year then?
Yep, so last year was San Antonio. Next year is Nashville. The year after that is New Orleans. And I forget the year after.
Oh, they're planning ahead.
Yeah, they have usually 3 or 4 weeks out, or years out, excuse me.
All right, well, thank you for that. Now we'll start on our new business. A review of the health education curriculum.
Yeah.
Mrs. Strelzik is in. She's going to share with us the health ed curriculum.
Yeah. I actually had the opportunity to go to CISA I think it was about 2 years ago, and learn from, there's kind of a collection of health and phy ed teachers that had sat down and built this curriculum and put it together and aligned it with state standards. So it's super cool, and I was really excited because we're transitioning to learning targets and how to get objectives in the classroom. And they had all of that built into this. So it's really cool because it has, at the beginning of the unit, all of the objectives for the lesson is built in with how you can assess the kids at the end of the lesson to make sure that they're on target. And then also the state standards aligned with every single lesson. So I was really excited about that because they did a lot of work for me. And it was right where Clear Lake was headed with the learning targets and stuff. So what I kind of took out of it, I do kind of pick and choose some lessons from here because we went through what is essential and making sure that we're taking care of our lessons and getting the most out of each of them. So I went through and picked the ones that were appropriate for health because we also don't want to overlap. Mrs. Hunter teaches pregnancy and how the baby develops and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want to teach that in health too. So I'm more of the how to prevent it. And so I kind of start out with vocabulary words and kind of the hot topics with like gender, sexuality, and how to address those in a way that's appropriate. So not using slang terms and things that would offend people. So just kind of telling them how to address that and what verbiage you should use when you're talking to somebody. That's how we started. And then we head into our second lesson is on love languages. I don't know if you've heard of the Gary Chapman book, but we talk about how physical intimacy is not the only way to show somebody you care about them, and to, you know, some people need words of affirmation, or some people need gifts is one of them. So just kind of going through and talking about what healthy relationships are and how you can communicate love in ways that is respectful, and that goes into the next one with consent. So we talk about what sexual consent is and communicating that in every level of relationship. We get a lot of questions with that one, and we have a very funny video that actually they showed me. They use tea to show how you can communicate consent. So it's really fun to look it up. However, I should say there's a clean version and there's a version that's unedited. So you want to make sure you click on the clean version. But it's very entertaining, and it gets the point across to the kids in the way that they understand it. And then we head into reproductive organs and what males have, what females have, and then how they work together. And then what it looks like in the sexual response cycle. I normally get a lot of fun questions during that day, but something that I found really helpful is I have the kids put questions in a box so that they don't have to ask the questions out loud, and then I can prepare how to answer them. And I like to pull things up online too, because then they can see a reliable source where that information is coming from. But yes, lots of questions during that lesson. The next one we go through is sexually transmitted diseases and infections, and just kind of how you get those, how they're transmitted, how to protect yourself against those. That is also a lot of oohs and ahs. I don't show pictures because they can get pretty scary. And then our last one is contraceptives, and I have the kids research just different methods of how to prevent it. And we always take the approach that obviously abstinence is the only 100% way that you're ever going to be safe. And even in the beginning of this whole unit, they talk about that. Abstinence from sexual activity as the exception for youth. Abstinence is the only completely effective way to avoid STDs, HIV, and unplanned pregnancy. So really showing them that that's the only way that you're going to be safe from this, but also giving them the information that if you did choose to do that, this is what could happen. So it's a really great curriculum. I was really happy to dive in. I don't know how I saw that. I think Mr. Gillis probably forwarded it to me, but it was a really great opportunity at CISA to go and learn with other people in the neighboring districts. So.
Does anybody have any questions?
I actually read that book. My wife made me read it. It was pretty good.
It's really good.
Yeah, the love language. Yeah.
It's a really good book. Yeah, and the kids always get kind of confused about that too. But then I have them make like a date and show them that they can communicate it in different ways. Then it's not just physical touch.
Yeah.
And just to get them to understand that. And it's not just romantic relationships. It's how you communicate to your parents, how you communicate to your friends. So yeah, that healthy relationships piece is a big part of it too.
So that guy has like a textbook too then, or just the actual book?
No, he has the book, and we don't go through all of that, but there's a teenage version of the quiz that leaves out romantic. Yeah, it asks from like a parent's
in his
perspective.
series, yeah, really good.
Yeah,
That's something for kids, I think, too. Isn't it?
Yeah, kids love languages.
yeah, it's very very cool.
So, Ms. Strelzik, like homosexuality, is that taught as an acceptable lifestyle? How is that taught?
We don't really, I wouldn't say we dive into that too much. It's more of just going through the terms, like what is a homosexual? So I literally give them a list, and if you want to look at the curriculum at all, but it's just defining it so that they understand what homosexual is. Because there's so many words thrown at them right now, like transgender and queer and lesbian, bisexual. What can you say and what should you not say? I was actually talking to my dad about it too, because he was mentioning, well, what are the correct terms? And queer used to be something you shouldn't say, and now it's something that means you're questioning. So just kind of telling the kids like what those things are and what people are talking about, but we don't really go into it a whole lot.
Okay.
What grade level is this curriculum for? Like what?
This is mostly freshmen, but
Okay.
sometimes if it doesn't work in their schedule, I have like a sophomore or junior in there, but it's mostly freshmen, yep.
Are there any health statistics shared with different lifestyle choices at all in your discussions with the kids?
You mean like with homosexuality and like, I wouldn't say
Sex
shares-
identity and whatever else, yeah.
I don't think I share statistics very much, but yeah. I mean, it's really hard because it's such a sensitive topic. I've pretty much every semester I've taught this, there's been like one kid in the class, maybe two, that might be trying to figure things out. And so it's really hard to talk about in a way that's sensitive to them, but also giving the information to the kids so that they understand how you're supposed to address it.
Right.
Or in a way that's appropriate to them. Yeah. But as far as statistics, I wouldn't say I give like numbers. Yeah.
The reason that I bring that up is, because there probably are some kids that are in the position that you speak of, and like I've seen on some of the LGBT websites that your age expectancy is in the 50s. There's a high stress rate. There's a lot of negative things that are on their own website that I think, when we're teaching our kids, we're supposed to teach them with truth, and we're supposed to teach them with love, and the outcome will be what we need it to be if that's what you used to teach with. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe that'd be a good idea, just to have some of the supporting statistics that show that if you make this choice, this is where this is the direction that you're going to go, and these are the statistics that you can anticipate from that choice. Just throwing that out there, I guess.
One way we do something similar to that is in the beginning of health, we talk about the 6 health dimensions, so mental, physical, social, and all that stuff. So when we go into each unit, we talk about how does this affect you mentally, how does this affect you physically, socially. So we always tie that back in. I wouldn't say that there's numbers associated with it, but we do talk about like, how does this mentally affect you? How does this, if you were to have an STD, how is this socially going to affect you? So we do go into that, and with all of that, STDs and STIs and all contraceptives, we definitely use
Premarital sex and everything. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions?
It's a pretty thorough curriculum.
I'd love to see it if I could sometime.
Yeah. You can look at this, but also it's all available online too. You can go and click on it, and they actually have junior high stuff too, which that's not applicable because we don't have a junior high class, and a lot of it's more like puberty centered. But just how they go through all of this, and actually one of the presenters was, I think she identified as lesbian, so that's how she was in that LGBTQ community, and so she was the one that talked about what was acceptable to say, like what was okay to say right now. So to get her perspective on that, I was like, I had no idea you could say queer and it was okay, or gay's okay to say, and it was good to get her perspective on those things.
Why are we even teaching homosexuality, stuff like that to our kids? That's not a natural thing. Why are we, it's a public school, why aren't we just teaching what nature?
Yeah,
Why are we going into homosexuality?
and if I could answer that, that's why we're having this discussion, because the board's interested in seeing what we are teaching, because the board actually dictates what we do teach, and that's what this information meeting is
That's why
about
I'm
right
asking
now.
why
And I think
you-
the key piece to this, with the standards work, but then also having met with Mrs. Strzelczyk leading up to it, we also recognize, same with like the religion topic, we have a captive audience, so we're not imposing any one belief system with this. This is just a delivery of information, and that came was very clear when we met with Mrs. Strzelczyk to say, would you come and present to the board, and then she walked us through this curriculum. So would you be able to share that link with me, and then I could forward it on to the entire board as far as the curriculum?
That might just be
Thank
something
you.
like the elementary people that teach could look over. I mean, if they have a little bit younger, that might be good for Mrs.
So I was making a
Larson
note
or,
to myself
yeah.
right now, look at
Yeah.
the same resource.
Yeah.
Different from what we're gonna use.
And I think if a family had a particular portion of the curriculum that they found that they didn't want their child to experience, of course they could put it that
Mhm.
opportunity to opt out of that evening.
Yeah.
It's certainly an opportunity for the family to make that choice.
And one thing that I should add too, after they define the terms, we go through and talk about what is science and like what is someone's preference. So we do go through and label those as, this is like, you have the genetics, you're born with these parts. This is what science tells you, and then we go through and we talk about, this is what somebody's idea of it is. So we make that pretty clear. And like I said, that's the first day. But I think it'd be a disservice to the kids not to tell them how to talk about it. I'm definitely not teaching what each of those things are. But I think they need to know how to speak about it and appropriately in a conversation. If somebody were to say, I am queer, whatever it is, so that they know what they're talking about.
Especially with someday, like we hope for most of our kids, they get the opportunity to leave the district and go on to college or other places, and having a basic knowledge so they can at least have a conversation with somebody without getting cornered by something or not being totally blindsided by something.
Well, and that's just it. We're here to educate, so I think we have to educate. We need to teach our kids with truth and with love, and a lot of us share the same truth, and some people don't have the same truth as us. We're here to educate, and I, Mrs. Strzelczyk, from in between the words of what you're telling, I'm glad that you're teaching this, and I'm glad you got a good handle on this. I'm looking forward to reading the curriculum, because we're not promoting any perversions or promiscuity by the sounds of what you're telling me, and that's why we asked you to. That's what I wanted to hear from my chair anyway, and I'm sure you guys share the same intent as I do, so thank you.
I've observed the class several times, and I don't have any concerns with the way it's being taught. I think Mrs. Strozik does a
Yeah.
phenomenal job with our kids.
I honestly really enjoy teaching it because I think the kids generally have questions that they might not want to talk to their parents about because they're embarrassed, or maybe they don't have someone to talk to about it, and being able to put a question in a box and not know who is asking the question, they're pretty honest, and I think that gives them the opportunity to ask some things that they're actually curious about and want to know if it's normal or if it's not. So
Well, and I think from a parent perspective, having a child who has friends who talk about some of those alternative lifestyles that they personally don't agree with, how do you have those conversations and still maintain, respective relationships within your classmates, even if you don't agree with their choices? So I appreciate that.
Any other questions from the board? Well, Mrs. Strelzik, thank you for coming in.
thank you.
And I'll get this back to you as quick as I can.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you guys have things to get to after you're done with your sessions, feel free. You guys can sneak out. We got a lot of things on the agenda here, so.
I can park the car down the
The next item of business then we'll move on to is the review of the 2018-19 audit.
Okay. I just gave you the audit packets. I'm not going to go through each of them. I just gave them to you guys if you wanted to review them. The same thing in them for the last now 5 years or 4 years since I've been here. We have the two main issues. One, we did have a license, special ed license that we had to write. Every year we've had two licenses that used to be licensed with stipulations, used to be emergency license, and now they're licensed with stipulations. So that was part of the audit. And then the second piece is the checks and balances piece that every small district deals with from my financial side of things. And if you guys recall, well, actually it'd be just Greg, I think, when Baker Tilly came in and presented on that, they're saying that there's absolutely no way around it unless the district decides to hire another person. But in their opinion, it'd be, inappropriate to hire that person as much as it'd be nice for everyone in the district office to have another person for checks and balances. So those are the only two issues with the audit process. So the packets for you guys to review. And certainly be more than happy to answer any questions if you had questions.
Everybody understands what material weaknesses are. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Then we'll move on to item C, approval of the FMLA leave.
Okay. So you saw I put the letter in there. Mrs. Larson, Brianna Larson, 6th grade teacher over at the elementary, is expecting and has written a letter requesting FMLA leave.
Nice. Well, then I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve an FMLA leave. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the approval of staff resignation.
On the agenda, we have Peggy Lundgren submitted her resignation. The vacancy has been posted and closes at the end of this week.
Okay.
Move to approve the resignation.
Second.
It's been with many thanks, Peggy, for your years of service. It's been properly moved and seconded to approve our staff resignation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the approval of criteria for determining school education open enrollment.
Okay. So each January, boards have to approve the criteria for determining special education open enrollment. I put our new board policy in there. And then in the notes, I just put the verbiage that will be that you guys will have to approve. But the recommendation is availability of open enrollment special education students will be determined by a weighted factor of 26 as outlined by the Department of Public Instruction. So we don't have any reason to cap our open enrollment. We have plenty of room. We have more going out than we have coming in, so there's no need to cap it, except for if we don't have space.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the special ed open enrollment.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the special ed open enrollment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is verification of school board declaration and ballot placement.
Okay, so we have Craig and Skip have both filled out paperwork, so thank you both for deciding to run again. So really all we need to do is draw names to determine whose name will be listed first on the ballot.
You want to be first or second, Skip?
Second.
Is that good enough?
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I think last time the argument was whoever's listed first gets more votes than last, but
That Skip was being a gentleman. All right, then the next item of business is consideration and approval of jazz band. 0 hour.
okay. So if you look back in the notes, or I'm sorry, in the board packet, I think it's the very last document. It's the proposal that staff used to express interest in new courses or any course changes. Mr. Verheyen, our band instructor, has submitted a course proposal to start jazz band during 0 hour, which is the time in the morning prior to the contracts starting. He's actually been doing it. If you guys were if anybody was at the last concert, he had the jazz. Some of the kids that are participating in the jazz band performed prior to the concert starting, and they did a great job, and he's been doing a good job. So this is just kind of to make it official and have it a paid position rather than just currently what it is, just kind of a volunteered position what he's doing.
Yeah, we used to have jazz band.
Yeah, they always did. My sister always went in the morning.
How long have we not had it?
It hasn't been since I've been here.
Hasn't been that long. I know that a few years ago, I can't remember if I was still principal here, if I was at the elementary, I know that the numbers were down and there was a lack of interest, and it was stopped
Fizzled out.
when Mr. Larson was still here.
What time does it start?
7:30.
They wanna do it.
2 days a week, 7:30.
I know Mr. Larson did it in the morning the same way, 7:30 to 8:10 or 8:15 or something when he did it, but it's been a few years though.
In a school our size, you're gonna have fluctuations in numbers of band, and we'd just like to get this one listed back in the course handbook.
Yeah, good deal.
I'll move to approve the 0 hour
I'll
jazz band.
second it. Been properly moved and seconded to approve the 0 hour for jazz band. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. And then item H, review of school board policies.
Okay, so this is going to be our first run at reviewing board policies. And the hope is that this just turns into a regular practice. So it starts out, bylaws are the easy ones, not too wordy. So just kind of thought we'd start with those, kind of look through them. We don't need to read through, literally read them out loud, but I just wanted to start the process of going through them. So if you look at, and then also talk about if we want to do this digitally rather than paper-based, because now they're going to be available through the internet. So if you look at the very first one, the policy 0100 is definitions in bold. So that's the name of the policy, and then everything else, everything below it is the actual policy. So the first one that we look through literally just defines everything, administrative guideline, apps and web services, but what the board is, definition of the clerk, what the definition of the school district is, the definition of a district administrator, and it even outlines, like if you'll see in district administrator, The term superintendent is interchangeable. Then it also, goes on due process. Another example is the term principal. If it's capitalized, it's considered an administrator. So these ones are pretty straightforward, but I just wanted us to kind of go through each one. So we can start with definitions. You guys have any questions or concerns? You need a minute to look through it.
A medical advisor, do we really have one?
Yeah, we really do. Yep.
And we have the nursing service plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So we utilize Polk County, and then we also this year for the first time I worked it out with Amory where we contract 2 days a year with the Amory school nurse. They agreed to help us out, and so we're utilizing the Amory nurse for the first time ever. So at the beginning of the year, the Amory nurse came over and provided some training for our staff.
Okay.
Medical advisor is the one who signs off on, like, we have EpiPens in the schools, so we had to have a medical advisor who I believe has to be a physician.
Yep.
And they sign off on that.
Do some training, and then we also reach out to those individuals if there's whooping cough or multiple kids with flu. If we have to send out a letter, they typically have some stock letters that they can provide us with to help us out. Or in the case this year, we had multiple things, and I just wanted to say there's crud going around rather than identify actually what it is. We could have sent out 4 or 5 different letters at the elementary anyway.
And at my house. All good with definitions? Okay. So move on. The second policy, as you can see, these are kind of fun ones because they're literally one sentence. What the board policy 0111 is the actual name of the school district. So it's the school district of Clear Lake Board of Education, or the name of the board, I'm sorry. So no issues with that. Then the next policy 0112, is the purpose. What our purpose is. Provide a free and appropriate public education. Is all good with those? Mm-hmm. Pretty straightforward. Boundaries, we don't have this in place yet, but so policy 0113 is boundaries. The school district of Clear Lake is comprised of the area and the description on file in the Board of Education office. So we don't have that in place yet, but we have I emailed the company that did our. They provided a map for us a couple years ago. I believe they're out of Eau Claire, but I emailed them to get a new map. Because right now this would be considered probably in the elementary. We have the map of the entire district, just because Mrs. Johnson does the busing and that stuff over there. But we're going to get a nice clean version for this, for the boardroom in here. So if anybody comes in, they can see the actual boundaries of the district. And it's quite interesting to actually see. Then you have the classification. We're classified as a common school district. I don't know if you guys remember, but I gave you the definition. I emailed you guys the different definitions of what the school districts are. Union district, common district. So that's pretty black and white. We have policy 121, authority. I'll let you guys read it. Any questions with the authority? Next one, so 2 more. Policy 122 is board powers. Having gone through the Neola process, you guys can see like the definitions aren't something that I just created. Like the board powers, you can see, is tied to the 120.13 Wisconsin state statute. So it's all most everything is tied to some state statute or law. And the last are the bylaws and policies. Policy 0131.1.
Any questions? These are pretty quick and painless, but as recall with the student ones, it will, there will be some, I think some board meetings where we'll probably just look at one policy, maybe two, some of the lengthy ones, and we'll actually have to be, read through them, and then if you do have any questions or concerns or want us to look into, then we'll go from there. But I think, I don't see this process as ending. I feel like it should just kind of always be going, unless you guys think differently, which I'm fine with that too. But
I think it's good.
does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So once we finish going through the bylaws, it'll be pretty quick, like what we did tonight. And then, like I said, once we're done with those, then we'll actually be reading policies through together.
So these are online now?
They're online. Yep.
Okay, so we can bring our computer and start doing it that way?
Yep, we can. And if that's what you guys want to do, we can store your Chromebooks in here, or if you guys want to bring them, or we could just get some that are just left in here too, which we could do that. So I'll have a couple extra next time in case you guys forget, and then we can just plan on accessing them through the internet in here. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay.
Next item of business is our superintendent's notes, Mr. Ernst.
Okay, since our last board meeting, we've had winter break. We had a lot of concerts and a lot of stuff in the district, as you guys are well aware, leading up to the break. And then we had a nice long break this year. Classes resumed on the 2nd, and there was a little bit of a fog over at the elementary. Even in my own household, some of my own kids with some swollen eyeballs and not quite ready to be back, but it was nice for the kids and the staff having a short week that Thursday and Friday back to kind of reacclimate back to life as we know it in the district. We have we also had we had a couple home basketball, wrestling, girls basketball, boys basketball, and some wrestling meets at home, which all we're having a great winter season as well with all three sports. We had a doubleheader on Friday the 10th at home, and then this week we have a doubleheader on the 16th, followed. And prior to that, as Mrs. Waterman said, we have the Empty Bowls event with the soup and bowls, and then the doubleheader that evening. We have a lot of trips with the end of the semester here happening. We have the 5th and 6th graders are at the Trollhagen, so some of us administrators are going to be over there on Friday. Then we have in-service on the 20th. We are bringing in Chris Stratton again. Mrs. Stratton from CISA is coming in to continue the work on the standards work. We're talking during in-service. We're going to be talking about now course mapping, using what we've done for the last year and how does that work specifically in our classroom, and how that impacts our lessons and assessments, and how to map out really for the entire year. Not that we're going to be mapping out for the entire year, but to talk about how we map out the lessons and units and eventually the year. And then eventually we want to be talking, which this has already started as well, because we've had common meeting times in both buildings for our teachers, talk about collaborating together and working on the assessment pieces as well. So that way we're not missing anything as the kids travel through the district. Week of the 20th, we are also is the WASB State Convention. So Ryan and Skip are both going to be joining me in Milwaukee for that week. And then and we also, I forgot to mention, we also have the second Friday count on the 10th, which is one of our reports that we do that counts how many kids, how many bodies are in the district. And that's about it.
Well, very good, Mr. Ernst. Thank you. Our next item of business is our contemplated closed session section of the meeting. in accordance to WSS 19.85, paragraph 1C, considering employment, compensation, or performance data of any specific employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. We will be dealing with the district administrator evaluation. So I'm going to poll the board, and I thank you guys for all coming. Have a good night.
I was wondering if there was something that I could say. And I realized that I'm not sure exactly when the time was appropriate. I kind of waited. And I understand that I no longer employ with the school district, and I appreciate that you appreciated my service. Thank you. But there was several reasons why I quit, and some of the reasons I wanted to let you all know, because I don't feel that I was treated fairly when I wrote my complaint to write my formal complaint about Tom and Brenda and Mr. Ernst. Mr. Ernst did his own investigation on himself. I'm not sure how that can happen, because I did say that he was showing favoritism. We've had several discussions, and I feel that I was completely retaliated against, and that is why I quit. Now, I realize that I've had my issues in the past. I'm not the perfect employee. I've never, ever said I was. If I had gotten talked to, I always tried to improve myself. Whether it be I went to counseling several times to improve myself. And yes, there are some roller coasters that I had, I will admit. However, I have always asked Mr. Ernst to let me know if there was anything that I could do to improve myself, because he feels that I don't take responsibility for my own actions. However, I feel that I do, in the way that I have asked him, please let me know if there's something that I can improve on. When I get sat down to be reprimanded, it's for things that happened months ago. Okay? This recently, when I was sat down because I had an altercation with Tom and his sister in the summer, where Tom brought me in with his sister and accused me of talking about her badly all summer. Now, they did not tell me what I said. They told me that the person that told them they wouldn't give me any information, but this person wouldn't lie. And I got mad. I felt I was being attacked. I felt that they were both against me. And ever since Brenda has been here, everybody, the custodial staff, has felt that there has been nepotism for Brenda. Okay? I've asked that to be looked into. Apparently, they said it was. I don't feel that it was, because the people that I asked him to talk to were never spoken to. They were never asked the questions. I wanted them to talk to Jason Kirk, because there are some confidential issues there that was not addressed, to my knowledge. Same way with Dave Rindall. There were things said to Dave about me that was brought back to me. And again, he was not questioned when I specifically asked them to question them. Now, Brenda had not talked to me for over 3 months. Okay? And things have happened in between those 3 months. If I asked her to do something, she refused to listen. She would completely ignore me. So I went about my business. I did not do anything wrong. Okay? Like I said, I am not a perfect employee, but I would hold the door open for her sometimes. She would, if she saw me, she would go the other way and go down a different hallway. Okay? So, fine. Dave's wife, unfortunately, had a heart attack. So, it was up to me and Brenda. We came up with a plan, and we had an event going on at the time in the gym. And I said, I will clean the gym. And so I was going fast, yes, I get that. Because that's what we have to do sometimes. You know, sometimes we may have to skip a room or skip some things that we normally would do because somebody's gone. So we came up with a plan. The next night, I told Brenda, I said the plans will change a little because I don't have the gym to do tonight. I said I can pick up some of the extra that you did last night so you don't have to stay here till 10. She approached me later on that day or that evening and asked me if I had a problem with her working till 10 o'clock. I said no. She asked me if I had a problem working if I had a problem if she was working till 9 o'clock that night. I said no. She proceeded to literally pick a fight with me and say, I don't understand how you can be so fast and get so much stuff done. And she basically proceeded to tell me what a crappy cleaner I am. I'm cleaning that room when she was saying all of this. Actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Peterson, it was your wife's room. She left. I'm now down in the bathroom, down in the commons. And she comes up to me and she says, and by the way, I don't have to compete with you. And I stood my ground, okay? And we had words. I'm not gonna lie to you, we did. And she ended up calling me psycho. And telling me how no wonder nobody wants to work with me, no wonder nobody likes me. Okay? I tell this to Tom. And because I had actually seen Tom Monday night when we first were covering for Dave. And it was the second day that we were covering for Dave, because she also told me that I'm very hard to work with. She doesn't understand that. And so I saw Tom. He had come in, and I sat Tom down, and I told him flat out, I said, I'm tired of you and your sister treating me like crap. I'm not gonna lie, I did. Because I was tired. I was tired of being pegged all the time. These people have been watching me since day one, since the beginning of school and my time. Now, I understand that stealing time is very, very disrespectful, against the law. I get it. I get all of that. Okay? But why would you wait a month and a half before you would tell me this? When I've already asked you, if you have a problem with me, let me know so I can change it. Okay? So, I talked to Tom. We had this fight the next morning. I called Tom and I said, did you talk to Brenda? And he said, no. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah, I didn't talk to her. And I said, well, I find it very, very interesting that for somebody who hasn't talked to me for 3 months, all of a sudden comes up to me and starts picking a fight with me. I said, I find that coincidental. I'm hoping that somebody else would too. So, and I said, and I don't appreciate being called psycho. Okay? Now apparently this is just a personality conflict that I have with her. I'm not so sure that this is what it is. Okay? If somebody comes up to you and starts a fight with you and starts telling you that you're not good enough, you really think that's a personality conflict? Because I don't. I feel it's harassment. So, what happens? My husband calls Mr. Ernst. He was standing up for me. They talked. I'm not quite sure what they said. And then nothing was said to me the rest of the day. The next day, I get brought into the office and they reprimand me. They reprimand me for having this confrontation that happened in August, which Mr. Ernst already knew about. Okay? He already knew about it. Why am I getting reprimanded 4 months after the fact? Again, time. If I'm stealing time, then, and you want to know why, then why aren't you asking me when it happens? Don't ask me 3 months down the road. I don't know why. Am I off my rocker? Seriously, I love this place. I worked really hard. Okay? I did everything that I was asked to do. I improved myself as much as I could. Because I was always being told by these people that I wasn't good enough. So I want you guys to ask him those questions. Why? Why didn't you tell me? Why did you wait?
All right, Peggy.
Thank you. That. Thank you.
Yep. Have a good night. We'll take your words into consideration.
Really? Why don't you investigate it?
Yeah, how can you guys investigate? How can he investigate himself? How come you guys didn't investigate it? Who does that? Did you guys ever see it? And you just passed it off to him to sign off on it? Is that how you guys operate?
So during the public comment section, which is what we just kind of reverted back to, that's when we get information like that and we take it in, and we're not supposed to correspond back. We're supposed to take things in, then we'll consider what's been said to us.
Okay.
So I can't answer any of your questions.
Okay.
But
Well, keep that in mind.
we'll take Peggy's words into consideration, and we'll move forward with them.
All right.
So thanks for coming in. All right, so to take care of the matter at hand, I'm going to pull the board. Nettie?
Yes.
Skip?
Yep.
Myself, yes. Ryan?
Yes.
And Christie?
Yes.
We're all present and accounted for. We're now in closed session. We're back in open session. I will entertain a motion to approve our superintendent evaluation.
I move to approve our superintendent evaluation.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve our 2019-20 district administrator evaluation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The last item of business is future agenda items. Anybody have anything that we want to touch on?
Just those next
More policies.
next policies.
Yep, so that's just going to be a regular part of our meetings from now on then, Josh?
Yep.
Be
Okay.
curious to see how long it takes. Like
To get through them all.
5 years?
Yeah. I don't know.
Hopefully
You're
I don't-
already on the
hopefully I
ballot,
don't
so
see
you
the
can't
last
go off
one.
because of it.
All right, anything else?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.